another amazing guest for you today. We have with us Alice Ye, and she is a certified career clarity coach with 14 years of corporate experience, guiding high achieving mid career professionals to escape unsatisfying careers and embrace more fulfilling, balanced lives by overcoming perfectionism, fear, and limiting expectations. Driven by her core value of curiosity, she helps clients clarify their vision, strengths, and beliefs to take calculated risks and find the freedom they desire. Alice, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, and we're excited to have you here. I have to say that this is definitely a topic that I probably could have used some guidance on a few years ago, but I'm happy you're here now. Um, Before we dive into it, though, we do like to have an icebreaker on this show, and the question for you today is: what cartoon character do you resonate with the most, and why?
So growing up, my favorite cartoon movie, I guess you could say, was The Little Mermaid. I loved Ariel, and the reason for that, and I think thinking back and looking back on that, she always was very interested in the outside world, learning, and very being very curious. And as you heard from the intro, I am very curious, and so I think that really resonates with me. And yeah, so I think Ariel is my favorite Disney princess.
I can see that. The wanting to explore new worlds and the being curious, but being encouraged to not be curious. Sounds a lot
Yes,
like our world today, huh?
yes, definitely.
So let's get back a little bit into that backstory of yours. So how did you get into being a career clarity coach? What led you to be where you are today?
Yeah, so much of my career, or even just life, I would say, I was always told to work hard, be the best, and that's how you'll find success. I spent most of my life really checking off the boxes. I went to Ivy League schools. I went to Princeton for undergrad. I got an MBA from Wharton. I worked at really large Fortune 500 companies like JP Morgan and Google, as well as early and late stage startups. But throughout all of this, throughout my career, I did feel like I kept running into this feeling of unfulfillment and just feeling like something was missing from my career. And so I kept trying new things, trying changing industries, changing roles, working at different size companies. I started at really large companies, and then I kept getting smaller and smaller as I went to late stage startups and then early stage startups. But yeah, I just felt like something was missing. And it wasn't until I actually was at my last corporate role where I was really feeling like I was feeling really stuck. And I felt like I had tried everything. I tried chasing promotions, but I kept running into ceilings. Yeah, as I said, I tried new roles, tried different industries, and still just felt like I kept running into the same feeling over and over after spending a couple of years at a new company where the same feeling of unfulfillment would creep back. And so, even though on paper my resume looks really successful, at the time I still felt like I didn't feel successful because I felt like something was missing from my career. And so, a friend suggested I seek professional help. So, I decided to look for a coach myself, and really help dig into this feeling of why I was feeling unfulfilled and what it means to how to move forward in my career and what that next step would look like. And so what through the work with by working with the coach, I learned or figured out that what really felt missing was the feeling of purpose, or feeling like having some sort of impact, and the work that I was doing was contributing to something. And so, having figured that part out, I was then able to figure out, okay, what does my next step look like? Where do I feel like I have impact? And as I thought about my career, the most common thread was the mentoring and coaching and working with people and making me feel like I said, where I felt like I had the most impact and where I felt the most fulfilled. And so I decided I wanted to explore coaching um, and so I think it's funny because when I decided I wanted to start coaching, I started a coaching certification program, and a couple weeks later, I got laid off during the tech layoffs in 2023. And so I took it as a sign from the universe to go all in on this journey and really just take charge of coaching. And so that's kind of where I became a coach. It's really to help others. And the reason why I decided to focus on career coaching was because basically based on my own story, I had gone through all these challenges throughout my career where I got laid off. I um, couldn't get promotions. No matter how hard I tried, I worked, took on more responsibilities, more projects, worked more hours, but all of that didn't pan out to what was promised. Experienced burnout, and I actually ended up even taking a year-long sabbatical. So there were all these different points in my career where I felt like I could really advise, and especially around career transitions and career pivots. So that's really where I decided to really focus on helping high achievers like myself leave really unsatisfactory careers and help them figure out the next steps in their career.
Well, it sounds like quite an interesting journey with lots of ups and downs. I'm sure it's one that, well, not only myself, but I mean many others can definitely relate to for sure. Um, what would you say was your biggest challenge along the way through all of that?
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge was really figuring out what purpose means to me. And it's I really struggled with this earlier in my career because I knew that you needed to feel like you had purpose, but it felt like such a existential question and really vague and hard to define. Um, and so there's a framework, the Ikigai framework, which is a Japanese um, concept which translates to the reason for being or art of being, and that is a framework to really help you identify your purpose or your reason for living. And the most common, so it's four is your Ikigai or your purpose. What you're good at, and the other two are what the world needs and what you can be paid for. And so I always really struggled with the concept of what the world needs because I feel like the world needs a lot. And so it felt really hard to define exactly my role in what the world needs. And I was able to reframe this and think about, okay, what kind of impact do I want to have or can I have? And what communities or types of people do I want to serve? And by narrowing down that scope, I was really able to identify, make the what the world needs more concrete and more accessible. And so the intersection of all of these four areas is really what can help define purpose for each individual. And it's definitely an exercise that I've revisited over and over again throughout my career. And it's only until I would say, the past few years where I've really been able to hone in on that and be able to really identify what my purpose is and what I feel excited about in order to feel fulfilled. So that was definitely my biggest struggle and challenge.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, it is difficult to kind of, and I love the Ikigai philosophy. Um, It is difficult though to kind of figure out your purpose in a society sometimes because it's not our fault. I just think that many times we get confused because we're kind of told what we want, we're told what we should do,
Yep.
and none of it really resonates sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. I think often, I mean, my early part of my career, I followed the herd. I followed what you were supposed to do. I, did the best I could. Went to Ivy League schools. Then I went into banking because people said that's how you'll make a lot of money. But looking back, it wasn't really exactly something I was really excited about. I just followed a path because that's what I was told would be good, and I just followed it. So I do think a lot of people, unfortunately, do follow a path blindly because that's what they've told, whether by their parents, by schools, by society. And even I think the reason why I focus on high achievers who are, especially in mid career, is that you've been following a path for a certain time and you reach an age or phase of your life where you realize this may not actually be the path I want to be on. But for many people, they feel like they've been on this path for so long, it's too late to change, or they don't want to start over, and so they just procrastinate really making any change, if at all. And so they just decide to continue on this path because they don't really know what other options there are.
I like that you brought that up too. I mean, a lot of times we might just stay in a job because it's the, quote unquote right thing to do. But why do you think so many of us are, reluctant or, even yeah, I guess reluctant's the right word to actually, look for something that we might enjoy or that brings us purpose?
Yeah, I think it's really the fear of uncertainty, because you may want to switch careers, switch industries, but you don't know whether you'll be able to. You're afraid of, as I was saying, afraid of starting over, or afraid to really leave behind all the success and accomplishments they've built up over time, as well as really just being afraid of the uncertainty of whether it's going to work out, or you don't know where to start. And so because of the uncertainty, you just end up not taking any steps because yeah, people don't know what to do. And so I think there's a few factors around there that really prevents from doing that.
Well, that and I think one of the biggest fears or uncertainty right now might be the current job market. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, I was fairly lucky in when I started working from home and I started on my career path. I did it before it was cool when COVID made it cool. Too soon for that joke? Too soon? But but anyway, back I remember back when I was applying to jobs, I would send maybe 7, 8, 10 resumes out and maybe get one or two interviews out of that and maybe get one contract out of that, right? But now it's like you have to send out 10,000 resumes, maybe get 100 interviews, and then maybe get what, maybe one callback out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, the job market right now is really tough, and so that uncertainty adds to the reluctance to make a change, because people want the stability and security, and so that's understandable. And the other on the flip side, though, I would counter and say that your job may not be as stable and secure as you think, with layoffs happening. um, well, there's a lot of changes in the current just environment, the world that we live in, and so there is a lot of uncertainty. So your job, your career that you think is stable and secure may not be as stable and secure as you think. Companies are no longer, valuing loyalty um, or rewarding that. And so I think the idea of staying at a company for long periods of time, I think for the older generations that may have been true, but now I don't think that that's as happening anymore. Companies are no longer feeling the need to reward their longtime employees, and they have no hesitation to drop you if they feel like that will improve their bottom line. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is now. And so I think we as people need to recognize that and think about what's best for ourselves and what's best for our careers. I like to point out that a lot of people are oftentimes um, kind of like passengers in their life or their careers, where it's just they're just letting things happen to them, and decisions are made for them. And I experienced that myself, where when I was working at Google, I really, at the time, that was one of the best companies to work at, with the perks, the benefits, and everything you read about in the news. Of course, that's changed now, but back then, I felt a reluctance to move because I thought, well, I'm supposed to be working at one of the best companies in the world to work at. Where else could be better? I didn't know, and I couldn't really figure it out. And so I just did what I thought, what everyone does. You go for promotions, you try to change roles internally. But I kept running into ceilings, I kept running into obstacles. And so the change I wanted to make never happened until my team went through a reorg and my entire team was eliminated. And so I got laid off. And so that decision was made for me. And I think a lot of people really spend their life or career where the decisions are made for them and they're just reacting. And so I think it's important for people to really realize that you don't have to be reactive. It's better to be proactive. And I think there's a saying where the best time to interview for a job is when you're feeling good in a career, of course, or feeling good in a role. And so you're at your highest confidence, you're top performing, and that's where you can really excel at finding a new job, if that's what you're thinking about. But most people wait until things are so bad that they really can't stand it anymore, because it's easier to just go with the flow and be reluctant to make that change rather than being proactive and taking it taking a stand, I say, to really make the change happen. So yeah, so
No, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting, and it's difficult at the same time. There are a couple of things we covered in there. The older generation, you said. Um, Unfortunately, the older generation is now anybody over 35. At least in my experience, I've found. Just because, for whatever reason, I guess maybe there's just too big a pool of people to choose from, or whatever the case may be. I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this in the last, I think it's been about 2 years now. If you're over 35 in a certain demographic, or it doesn't even matter the demographic, if you're over 35, it's almost like they don't even want to look at you to start over. Like, say you wanted to start over, they don't look at you to want to train you because you're too old to train. Or,
mm,
and the other side of that is, oh, you're too old and you have too much experience, so now we can't mold you. So now maybe we
yeah.
don't want you either. So, I mean, the choice is there. It's more difficult to find a position there, but do you think it's more beneficial to kind of keep plugging at it and try to find a position, or do you think at that point it's better to kind of make your own position, like in your own company, or side thing?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person. Entrepreneurship or starting your own company is not necessarily for everyone. I do think that path is definitely the way to the most freedom and being your own boss and calling your own shots. But I also recognize that may not necessarily be everyone's strength. And so So yes, I do agree that when you do reach a certain age, you do run into the ageism, the concepts that, like you say, you're too old, you're too experienced to mold, or if you did want to start over, it's too late. But I do think it is still possible. And I think what's important is that I think people don't realize the importance of really understanding yourself and how to position yourself and your personal brand, and really showcase how, if you do want to change roles, how your previous experiences, your skill sets, really position you for whatever it is that you want to change into, and really relying on those transferable skills. And so I think people really underestimate the power of that, and really underestimate themselves when it comes to how to position themselves, how to, essentially market themselves. Because when you're in a job search, you are the product, you are selling yourself. And so I think people really don't oftentimes don't have a good grasp of how to do that, especially when it comes to changing careers, because they're so used to thinking about themselves in a certain way that it can be challenging for them to think about themselves and position themselves in a different way, even though their skills and the soft skills especially are transferable and they do have something to offer. It's about how you communicate that and make that understandable to the new employer or the new industry that you're interested in. And yes, I do think entrepreneurship is a great path or avenue. That's certainly what it was for me, where I wanted to be the one to come up with the strategy and set the path for myself. And so I do think that that is definitely a path forward for others, but it comes with its own challenges.
Well, you're certainly not wrong in that it comes with its own challenges. I just want to circle back just a little bit, and you mentioned that people don't know how to do their own personal kind of story or position themselves, and one of the things that comes to mind immediately is social media.
Hmm.
Um, Being a procrastination coach, I kind of I'm very much on the fence about this, and I really don't try to engage too much in social media, but how important do you think social media is when somebody's trying to position themselves or, um, maybe switch the career up?
Yeah, I think I think honestly, in current times, social media is a lot of noise. There's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of people are putting stuff out there. LinkedIn is now just full of, it is a social network now. It's just full of posts by people, and it's very overwhelming, and I don't blame you for for not engaging. And so I think oftentimes people think that, oh, I don't want to post on social media. And when I was suggesting that, coming up with your brand, you don't necessarily have to post on social media. That is one way to show thought leadership, but it's not the only way. And what I like to tell people is, or advise clients, is really think about where you have shown thought leadership or a passion for maybe it's a new industry. What are other ways to get involved if it doesn't involve social media that you might be more interested in, that is a better fit for yourself? And there's actually a lot you can, there's books to read. There's, even just within smaller communities, within your alumni school networks, or different communities you may work with or naturally be part of. And that's a smaller way to present yourself, or talk about your interests, and build connections through that. So yes, social media is one way, but it's not the only way.
I like how you said that. It actually segues pretty good into my next question. You mentioned about small communities or other groups or things that you might already be a member of and showing that. How important do you think it is your network? I mean, we always used to say it before. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Do you think
Mhm.
that's more true now, or do you think it's less true?
I think it's more true. I think, like you said, with the job search, there's hundreds and hundreds of applicants now. And I think who you know, who can make those introductions for you is more important than ever because the referrals, the people you know, they're able to vouch for you. They're able to provide a connection for you. And so it is definitely the people you know, and oftentimes it's actually your weak connections. So people you may not necessarily talk to every day that you're closest to. It's the weaker the weaker connections that actually can benefit you the most because you can connect to other people through those weaker points. And so there's a Harvard business case study about a woman who really was it's she's like the gold standard when it comes to networking, and the whole case study talks about how it's relying on those weak connection points to really expand your network, because if you if you focus solely on your strong connections, your network is very most likely smaller and more insular, because we tend to hang out with people we that are like-minded, that are very close to yourself. And so when you expand that out to the people you know but may not be very close to, they introduce you to a different group of people, and so that's how you really expand your network. But yeah, I definitely think that networking is more important now than ever. Everyone craves connection, um, and wants to make that connection. So
I like what you said there. And it's very kind of contrarian, right? I mean, we've all heard that you really not have to build quality connections, and yet you know, well, I guess it goes back to being curious, right? As long as you're curious about other people, then you'll be able to make new connections fairly easily, even if you're not, a big fit or a good fit. They'll still remember you for being curious and therefore can open other doors for you. That's kind of the idea behind that study.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think the other point is also to to think about. I think a lot of people have a aversion to networking because it feels very selfish and self-centered. And I think the reason why a lot of people approach networking is because they do approach it with that mindset of, oh, this is what I need from somebody. Or and so you come from a place of really self-centeredness, and really trying to focus on yourself, and needing something from other people. But when you focus on networking as a way to give and help others, and that's where the you become more memorable with the person that you're trying to network with. And so instead of focusing like what can I get out of this relationship, it's focusing more on what can I do to help this person, or um, how can I make the connections for them? And by doing that, you're actually standing out in their mind. And when you later need something or need a connection, they actually remember you, and they will be more likely to help you. And so I think that's often the case too, where um, the idea is to really focus on helping others, and following through on that help.
I like that, and it goes back to this theory that I actually stole from Netflix. So it wasn't me, but I mean I like it. It was, I believe, it was on the it was a show titled Mind of a Dog, and it
Hmm.
sort of went through the history of all the history of dogs and how they survived for all these years. And it wasn't survival of the fittest; it was survival of the friendliest.
Mm.
And I guess it was, the examples they gave were dogs and then the penguins too, right? So you have the penguins; they all huddle together for warmth. So if
Yeah.
you have one penguin that's kind of being a jerk, I guess they kick him out and he freezes to death.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like that. I like survival of the friendliest, and just sort of on that same note. Um, what are you working on right now? I mean, you've obviously had your hands in a lot of places. You've helped a lot of people. What's next for you?
Yeah, so for me, I'm still doing the career coaching, and if any of the story or what I've talked about really resonates with people, would love to talk to, would be happy to talk and chat and learn more about how I can help. And I actually really just started a new role as head of career at SAM, which is a support system for women. We're a startup. And so we are building a platform, a marketplace for women to support them during life's challenges, like career challenges. Elder care and chronic illness are two areas where women also really struggle a lot. And so the idea behind SAM is to really provide the resources and community and experts, actually, like coaches, advisors, consultants, to be able to offer their expertise to these women during these challenges. And so with my focus on career and my experience as a career coach, plus my corporate background, I'm able to leverage all this to really help build out our career offering and build out the resources for women who are experiencing the different pain points that I had experienced in my own career. So really understanding that and building this platform. So I'm excited to on this new next phase of my career journey is really giving back and now building this support system for women. So if anyone's interested in learning more about SAM, it's you can find out more at wearesam.co.
Excellent. And to all our listeners, don't worry about that. We are going to have links and social profiles and all that fun stuff. So you don't have to worry about grabbing pens or papers or anything like that in the show notes, so that you'll be easily able to find it. Alice, it's been a great conversation. We are coming up pretty close to the time. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked but didn't ask, or anything that we should have covered that we didn't cover today?
No, I think we covered everything. I think what I'll like to leave close out the conversation with is I what I like to tell people is that, especially when it comes to career, think of your career as a CEO would. You are the CEO of your career, your life. And so what changes do you need to make it better? And I know the theme of this show is procrastination. And Chris, as a procrastination coach, I think oftentimes a lot of people are procrastinating when it comes to making changes in their career because of the reluctance that we talked about, the fears. And so I think hopefully this episode or our conversation has inspired you to take as a step in action to move away and no longer procrastinate when it comes to making changes to your career.
Excellent. Well, it's a very good, very powerful note to end on. Thank you so much for being on the show, Alice. And to all our listeners, again, thank you for tuning in. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just try to be that motivation or inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.